versus Heather Renee Thelen, file number 22-00680. Are we ready to bring the jury back in?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your Honor, yes. I'm ready.
Okay. They sound like they were getting along pretty well in there.
I'm sorry.
Right. Nope, that's actually. Oh yeah, there's someone move that chair. That should be over there. Yeah. Where is the maintenance people? Okay, no, you can be seated. Thank you. Okay, just before we recessed for lunch, I advised that we will begin with, excuse me, opening statements. Hopefully you enjoyed your lunch. And so we'll let the prosecution start.
Thank you, Your Honor. Anger, frustration. They're all basic human emotions that we feel every day. Feel these throughout our everyday life. In different situations that we're put in. We might feel upset, we might feel angry, or we might feel frustrated. It's how we react in those situations to define what happened, to define the outcome of those situations. When we're angry, we can say loud words, we can argue, we can say mean things. But also when we're angry, upset, or frustrated, things can get violent. That's what happened here. Some people got angry, the defendant got angry, she got frustrated, she was upset. Instead of using her words, instead of talking about it, instead of stopping to think, she resorted to violence. Neoma Scott was at the defendant's house with her grandson, Jaden, and her daughter, Melinda. And they were there to return some stuff that they had for the defendant's daughter. They got their car, they got in their car, they got out of their car. They had these items, and they began to trade them back and forth between the car. They began to unload their car, put it in the defendant's daughter's car. While doing this, the defendant's daughter became upset. She didn't want Leoma touching her stuff. She didn't like it. She didn't like that somebody else was touching her stuff. She said, stop. Just stop touching my stuff. And Leoma didn't want a confrontation. She wasn't there for a confrontation. She wasn't there to yell at anybody or to anger. She was just there to help return some stuff. So the defendant's daughter said, stop touching my stuff. So Leoma dropped her stuff. She could have set it down, but she dropped it. It was a reaction. She dropped her stuff. She didn't want confrontation. She wanted to de-escalate the situation immediately. So she dropped her stuff. And when she dropped her stuff, the defendant's daughter, Elizabeth, got upset with this. Elizabeth shoved Leoma. Shoved her back. And Leoma stumbled a little bit. And then from behind, the defendant wrapped her arms around Leoma's neck and took her to the ground. I don't know why she did this, but she did it. She was upset. She could have been mad that her daughter's stuff was thrown on the ground or just sat on the ground and it was not boxed. But she attacked. She attacked unprovoked. Leoma said nothing to her. Nothing was said. Nothing was done. It took Leoma's daughter, had to break up the fight. Leoma's daughter had to pull them away and break up the fight. Because her mother was being attacked. Meanwhile, her 16-year-old grandson who was there was watching as well. Prove the charges of assault and battery. I have to prove the defendant committed a battery upon Leoma Scott. A battery is a violent, forceful, or offensive touching of a person or something connected to that person. The touching must have been intended by the defendant. It doesn't matter if it caused injury. And again, the defendant had to intend to commit this. Her actions show what she intended to do. There was a forceful and offensive violence. You'll see from the testimony, Leoma will tell you how she did nothing to provoke this attack except drop the stuff as she was asked to do. That's all she did. She did what she was asked to do, and she was attacked. Thank you.
Is the defense going to make an open statement at this time, or did you want to wait?
No, I will make it at this time, Your Honor. Thank you. So what you're going to, obviously we talked about it before we went in lunch, but what you're going to be doing here is deciding whether the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt that Ms. Heather Thelen here did assault Leoma Scott. Again, that burden is on the prosecutors. They must show that each element, like you said, that it was a forceful touching, that she had intended to make it a forceful touching, it was unconsented touching, that sort of thing, those elements. And then they're going, but largely it's going to be based on people's testimony. There were 5 people there that day, and they are all going to testify today. So you're largely just going to determine, like we talked about before, with credibility, figuring out who is telling it, what is the truth, who is telling it. If you can't figure that out, you have enough questions. If it raises a reasonable doubt, that's where the state has not proven their case, and you must acquit Ms. Thelen. So I think we're missing some facts here. Obviously, we're going to get that more when they testify, but you know, Prosecutor Ring had mentioned how this was anger. This incident came out of anger and frustration. I believe it is. The defense will show that it is an incident born out of anger and frustration, but not from Ms. Thelen, from the defendant. It is it's going to be testified to that that this was obviously they knew each other. What had happened was they getting property, like Ms. Scott will say, my client and her daughter went over to their family, one of the homes of the family, the grandson, to procure property. She had been dating the grandson. She was pregnant at the time. That very day, the grandson broke up with her in text, and therefore she was just trying to get her property. So there was with an anger and frustration on the part of my client or daughter. There was a lot of confusion. They just didn't know. They just wanted their stuff. There's going to be a testimony that there was anger, and there's always been anger with Ms. Scott and my client and her daughter. That this is a situation that accumulated to this day, and that it was actually Ms. Scott that was getting aggressive and actually grabbed my client's daughter, and therefore my client tried to intercede to protect not only her daughter but her unborn grandchild as well. Again, we're going to hear that from everyone who was there, and again, in the end, it will be up to you to figure out what really happened, what is the truth, and who is telling it, if anyone. And again, if you still have questions that amounts to reasonable doubt, you got to find my client not guilty. So thank you.
We'll call Leoma Scott. They're in conference room 3.
here, ma'am. You can raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. You can have a seat, please. It's completely up to you if you want to wear your mask while you're giving your testimony, but we need to make sure that your responses are verbal and that they're loud and clear. I have a court reporter who's sitting directly behind you, and her job is to take down everything that's stated in the courtroom so she can create a record. So we have to be able to hear you. They have to be verbal, no head nods, no head shakes, no mhm, uh-hus, because we can't understand that on the record, okay? Also, if you don't understand the question, you can ask to have it repeated. If you didn't hear it, you can ask to have that repeated as well. If you hear an objection, I want you to stop giving any of your answers. I'm going to make a ruling on that objection, and then I'll tell you if you can give that response or not, okay?
Okay.
Let's start with you saying both your first and last name and spelling them for the record.
Leona Scott, Leona Stott.
Okay, Council, you can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Scott, I'm going to take you back to September 18th, 2019. Do you remember what you were doing on that day?
Not the beginning of the day. I think I was at work and I came home.
So after you came home, did you drive to 1652 Dock Strong's?
Yes,
Is that in the city of Lansing?
yes,
Is that in Union County, Michigan?
yes.
Okay, and why did you go to that location on that day?
I was told that Libby Raleigh needed her stuff. And so they loaded it up in the car and I took it to my grandson Dakota's house. That's where we were supposed to meet up to give a boost.
And did you know who Libby Raleigh is?
Yes.
And who is she in relation to you? How do you know her?
She was a school friend of my granddaughter Melissa.
So did anybody go with you to help you drop off her stuff?
Yes, my daughter Miranda Stevens and her son Hayden Stevens.
And did you expect to meet anybody else there besides Libby?
Yes, her mother Heather.
So when you showed up, were Libby and Heather already out of the vehicle?
That part I don't recall.
Did you park near their vehicle?
I was to the right. They were parked in Dakota's driveway and I was parked to the right of the driveway, so I was facing to the right.
So you were parked on the street
Yes.
and they were parked in the driveway?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Did you know who Heather Thelen was?
I had never met her until that day.
You never had any interactions with her prior?
No, I didn't.
And so why were you giving back property?
Because Libby was staying at my house at one time and I had kicked her out. So she went to go stay at my grandson Dakota's house and he also kicked her out. So she needed her stuff to go back to home.
Was it a lot of stuff?
There was more there than I thought there was. I didn't realize that she had so much stuff there, considering she wasn't supposed to be at my house to begin with.
Was this property, was it boxed up or bagged up, or was it just loose property at the
A
time?
lot of it was loose.
So did you begin to give their property back? Did you begin to exchange the property?
Yes, I took about 4 loads from my vehicle and put them into the pipe.
And while you were doing that, did anything happen?
Yes. We went to go get a load, and I had gotten a load and was hanging on to it. Libby said, "Oh, I don't want you touching my stuff." So I let go.
And did it fall to the ground?
Yeah.
Was that loose property?
Yes.
Do you remember what kind of property it was?
Books.
So So what happened after it fell to the ground?
The next thing I knew, Libby shoved me or pushed me, and I was stumbling backwards, and Heather grabbed me from the back.
When you were facing Libby and she shoved you, how were you facing, sorry, were you facing Libby when she shoved you?
Yes,
And how did she shove you?
she pushed me forward, or pushed me backwards. I was stumbling backwards.
Was the record reflect that the witness is pushing out with two hands in a forward thrusting motion?
So moved.
And so when she pushed you, you said you stumbled,
I was stumbling backwards, yeah.
and what happened after that?
Heather had a hold of me, and then she had me by the throat, and she was pushing me backwards. I think she was using my head as a way to try to smack my head against the car, but my back hit the car, and then instead my head, and I went to the ground.
And the person that attacked you from behind, are they in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is.
Can you please point to them and describe something they're wearing?
She's over there wearing a blue shirt.
Let the record reflect that the witness is ID the defendant.
Any objection to identification?
No, Your Honor.
Identification is made.
So after you fell to the ground, what happened then?
She was on top of me, and I was trying to defend myself, or I was blocking her. My daughter Miranda came up and tried to pull her off and couldn't get her off me the first time around, so then she came back the second time around and bear hugged her and pulled her off me.
And did you ever touch Libby?
I never touched Libby.
Did you ever touch Heather before this happened?
I never touched her either.
You said you were fighting back in struggle. Trying
I
to,
was just trying to block her.
so after your daughter separated you, what happened next?
I remember getting up, and by this time Heather kind of, I don't know, calmed down or something. I don't know. She backed up away from me. I got up and I said, I need my glasses. I don't know where my glasses are at. And I was trying to look for them, and I can't really see without my glasses. Libby did say, your glasses are over there, and she pointed to my glasses.
Did you call the police?
We left there and went to my grandson's place of work. He worked at a gas station, so we went there and we called the police when we got.
I'm gonna back up a couple seconds right there. After you got back up, did you still have items in the car that belonged to Libby when you left?
You know what? That part I don't even remember.
That's fair. So you called police. Did the officers, did you have any injuries?
Yes,
From the
I had marks around my throat and on my arms. Skinned up my arm, I think it was.
And did the officers take any pictures that day
He did.
of your injuries? May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
For the record, correctly, I'm showing the witness was marked as People's Exhibit 1.
Yeah.
Do you recognize that photo?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
Is that,
Yeah, we were still sitting in the car when he took that picture.
so that's a photo that the officer took?
When I was still in the car, and he had taken some pictures when we were in the gas station.
Okay. So it's right after the incident.
Yes,
Is that a fair and accurate representation of what you look like on that day?
for that day, yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit People's Proposed 1.
Any objection to People's One?
No, Your Honor.
Your Honor, may I publish the jury?
People's One is admitted. Yes, you may.
So when she grabbed you from behind, what were you thinking?
Mostly not falling, because I kept stumbling no matter, and the whole time, it felt like I was always just falling backwards, even when she grabbed me, it just, in that motion, it just was always feeling like I was falling, so that was the only thing I was thinking.
Did you try to put your arms out to stop you?
Well, I was going backwards, I couldn't really actually do it.
What is one thing you'll never forget about September 18th, 2019?
That it was senseless. For one, I really did not do anything. I didn't even really speak to her. She was talking to Miranda, my daughter. So they were having more of a conversation. I only made a couple of comments to her, but I wasn't yelling at anybody. I wasn't doing anything.
And how did this injury impact you after?
Well, I missed work for a couple of days because I was pretty sore. Bruising started coming up. I went to the doctor that night. I also went back to the doctors because I felt like I had broke my ribs. And they told me it wasn't broken ribs, that I had deep internal muscle bruising.
Thank you. Not very much for that.
Cross-examination.
So you said that you knew Libby Rowley, Miss Thelen's daughter, through your daughter or one of your family, Melissa.
Melissa.
All right, and was she at the time? Was she also when you knew her dating? Was your grandson Austin?
Yes, she pretty much started dating Austin as soon as she came into her.
All right, and so you said that she lived at your home for a time, and that's why her things were there.
Correct.
All right, and then she also lived with your another grandchild, or well,
Yeah, they had to have somewhere to go, so they went to my grandson Dakota.
Dakota. Okay.
That's a yes.
And so you said that you came home that day, and was it Austin that told you that Libby needed her stuff?
No, actually, it was Miranda.
Okay, your daughter did. Okay. And so you said that her things were loaded into the back of your car.
Correct.
All right, and you have like a sedan.
Yeah, it was a Kia.
Okay, with like a trunk you pop open. And then you and Miranda and Caden, your grandson, went to Dakota's house.
Correct.
Okay. All right. So the expectation was that Libby and her mother were going to be at Dakota's to get their stuff from Dakota's house, and then you would be coming by, or someone would be coming by and giving her stuff from your house.
Correct.
All right. And you said that you so you said that you parked on the street and Heather's car was in the driveway.
Yes.
All right. And so do you recall what you said, if anything, when you actually got out of the car when you arrived?
I didn't say anything when I got out of the car. Her and Miranda were talking back and forth, but it was not me.
Okay. And did your grandson Caden get out of the car?
He did, but I don't know when. I wasn't really paying attention.
All right. And before you got out of the car, is it one of those cars where you have to pop the trunk before you get out? Or did you pop it when you got to the back?
I may have popped it before I got out. That part I don't remember.
Okay. But do you remember if you went straight to the trunk to start unloading?
Yes.
Okay. And so you said that you started unloading took armfuls basically of loose belongings, correct?
Right. She mostly had loose stuff. I think she had some things bagged up, but most of it was loose.
All right. And with that first load, do you remember what you did with it?
Yes, I put it in Heather's car.
All right. You actually took the load and put it and took it up the driveway and put it in her car. Okay. And did your daughter help take the stuff out of the trunk?
That part I don't recall.
Okay.
I remember what I was doing. I wasn't really paying attention to anybody else.
Okay. And then your grandson was also, did he take any loads?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, and then, so then you said it took one armful load to the back of Heather's car.
Yeah, I take, yep.
All right, and then, you went back to your trunk to get more?
Mhm.
All right,
Yes.
and is it, did you take another armful or it did, no?
I just would grab some and I would put it into Heather's.
So how many arm loads did you think you took?
I took about 3 or 4 arm loads, I believe, before Libby said, I don't want you to touch my stuff.
And, okay, so why didn't Libby want you to touch her stuff?
Probably because I kicked her out of my house and she was mad at me.
Okay, but you said that you took like 3 or 4 loads from your trunk to the car. There was no issue with you doing those loads, right?
No, there wasn't nothing said before that, no.
So for some reason, Libby just, after you doing 3 or 4 loads, was like, no more, I don't want you touching my stuff.
Yeah,
Okay,
for no reason. That part I don't know why she did.
okay. All right, and then, so you are, at what point you said that you're, at what point does Libby tell you to stop? Or do you have an armful
I
between?
had gone into my trunk of my car and I picked up some books. That's what I had in my hand.
Mhm.
That's when she said, I don't want you even touching my stuff. So I went and I took my arms and let them drop to the ground.
Okay, so you are at your trunk. Libby is talking to you. So you're facing you're trying to get an arm load out and you're trying to turn around and she tells you to stop. So at what point are you dropping the stuff out of your arms?
I went in and I grabbed some stuff and I went to go turn. She said, I don't want you to touch my stuff. So I kind of backed up and I dropped them on the ground and next thing you know, she shoved me and I stumbled backwards and Heather grabbed hold of me.
So you're basically you're in a car, your car's on the street, you kind of turn to the side now and you dropped it right there. So she's facing
more, I turned a little bit and then I dropped it. Yes.
Okay, because you're saying that that Libby attacked you from the front and then Heather basically attacked you from behind.
Yes.
Okay. So you have like basically your car is to your right or to your left, and what do you know which one it was?
Now I started to turn, so I would have been trying to turn to the left, but she started talking to me. She said, I don't want you to touch my stuff, so I just kind of let it drop.
Okay.
And then she said, I don't want you to touch my stuff, so it's kind of somewhat facing her to some degree. Next thing you know, she's shoving me. And as far as I know, she was shoving me from the front because I was going backwards.
Okay. So when so you tried to face her, you dropped books, right? Were they in between you or anyone, or?
I do not know. I just kind of dropped them.
Okay. And then you said that Ms. Thelen or Heather came up to you from behind and put her arm around your neck.
That's what it felt like.
Now, how tall are you?
5'5".
Okay. All right. And you said that you just felt like you were falling, right?
I was constantly feeling like this.
Was it because it didn't take long?
Everything happened really fast. So it was just before I know it, I'm just then trying to defend myself because now I'm on the ground, which that took me a minute to figure out how did I get to the ground. Because, like I said, it all came so fast and it was just like, boom. I remember kind of hitting the back of the car and sliding down to the ground. And then she was on top.
So you said you fell. When you fell, she was pulling you, she was falling with you, right?
Or not at first. When she had me by the throat, then I was more or less going backwards. I don't know whether she was falling. I just know that I was, and I don't recall her other than she was going towards the car to hit me on the car, and then we went to the ground. So I guess she was falling with me.
Okay, and so when you guys fell, so you fell together, did any of you fall on top of her?
No, I didn't fall on top of her. The next thing I know, she's sitting on top of me.
How was she sitting on top of you?
Straight.
So you're laying on your back and she's got both legs around your waist.
Yeah, she's over top of me. I like sitting on top of me.
But when you mean straddle, you mean she's got both
Well,
knees
yeah,
on either
yeah,
side of
She
you.
was on either side, yes.
All right, and then what does she do at that point?
Well, I think she was trying to hit me because I was trying to block her. And the next thing I know, my daughter's trying to pull her off me, and it didn't work. And then she came back and she kind of bear hugged her and stretched and pulled her off.
Did you try to kick her off of you as well?
There was a point on the second time when she was trying to crawl to, or I don't know, Miranda got her off me. She kind of came by me and I kicked at her, yes.
Okay. But you said that eventually you got up off the ground and separated yourself from Heather.
Yeah, at that point, when I got up off the ground, Heather was off to the side, off to my right, I think. But she wasn't, at that point, she wasn't on me. She wasn't doing anything else to me. She just kind of.
Did she get off of you or did someone force her
No,
off?
she was pulled up by my dog.
Okay, so you said Miranda wasn't able to get to her at first, but eventually did she get leverage or what did she
Right,
reposition
she said
herself?
she tried to pull her off and it didn't work, and she said she had to come back and kind of bear hug her and pull her up.
Right, and then you said that again, being a rush, you don't really remember much afterwards.
No, I remember we left and they left, but that I don't. I remember getting up and I couldn't find my glasses. I said, well, I gotta find my glasses. And Libby said, your glasses, which were over to the left of me on the ground. She said, by my car. She said, your glasses are over there, and she pointed to it and she showed me where my glasses were.
Okay, all right, so in going back to People's Exhibit 1, that so the injury to your elbow.
Must have been on the ground. I don't even remember that even happening. I mean, I remember it being there, but I don't remember getting.
You don't remember if it happened in the fall or if it happened sometime else.
No, if it happened in the fall, I didn't have that when I went.
All right, and it was it a scratch or was it a bruise or?
That was a scrape, anyways, I think.
Okay. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you. And redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor. When you were on the ground and Heather was straddling you, what was going through your mind?
Did not have her punch me in the face because the look on her face was like she really wanted hurt me badly. So I was just more like thinking not to let her hit me in the face.
And how are you feeling?
More stunned than anything.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Yes, let's be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
I think you may be excused. Call your next witness.
The people call Caden Stevens.
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury.
I swear.
And you can have a seat, please. Okay, there are a couple of rules. I have a court reporter that's behind you. She has to take down everything being stated here today. There's a microphone in front of you, so I need all of your responses to be verbal. I need them to be loud and clear so that we can get an accurate record, okay?
Okay.
Also, no head nods, no shakes, no mhm, uh-huhs, because those are hard to read into the record. Lastly, if there's an objection by either of the attorneys, you'll stop your response. I'll make a ruling. I'll let you know if you can give that response, okay?
Okay.
Okay, is that a potential witness?
No, Your Honor, it's a support person.
Okay, very good. Please state your first and last name and spell them both.
Caden Stevens, KAIDEN STEVENS.
Okay, you can proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, then we're gonna go back to the 18th of September, 2019. That day, were you at 1652 Dock Strong's?
Yes.
And why were you there?
I wanted to go with my grandma and mom to help Elizabeth bring her things from the car to her mom's car.
So you said you went with your mom. Who is your mom?
Miranda Stevens.
And you went with Leoma Scott.
Yes.
And is that your grandma?
Yes.
When you got there, what did you do?
When we got there, I sat in the car for like maybe like first 10 seconds, and then I got out, and then I was just watching Leoma Scott and my mom, Miranda, carrying stuff from their grandma's car to her mom's car.
And were you helping them move anything?
No.
You were just watching.
Yeah.
And do you know about how many trips that Leoma made with
Um,
stuff before?
I think about 4 or more.
And what about that fourth trip? What happened after that?
On the last trip, Elizabeth said, "I don't want you touching my things," so she just dropped them.
And when you say she dropped them, you mean Leoma?
Leoma, yeah.
And after she dropped them, did she say anything? Without telling me what she said, just did she say anything?
I don't remember.
And so after she dropped them, what happened?
She turned around and then Elizabeth pushed her.
And did you see how Elizabeth pushed her?
I think it was more like a shove, but I don't remember.
Do you remember if it was one hand or two hands?
I think it was 2.
And where were you standing when this happened?
I was standing by my mom's car,
So were you in the back of the car near the trunk?
near the trunk.
And then after Leoma got shoved, what happened after that?
Her grandma or her Elizabeth mom came from behind and they shoved her against the car and they fell to the ground and started putting her hands on her neck.
Is Elizabeth's mom Heather Thelen?
Yes,
Is she in the courtroom today?
yes,
So you saw Elizabeth push your grandma, right?
yes.
And after that, Heather, sorry, one more time, back me up on that. After Elizabeth pushed your grandma, what happened?
Heather came from behind her and tried to push her into the car and then they fell to the ground.
Was your grandma facing Heather when she came at her?
No.
Did she run at her?
I think Elizabeth pushed her in her direction and just Heather just came at her.
And were you able to see when they fell to the ground?
Yes.
Did you see Leoma push back?
Well, she was on the ground and for most of the part, and she was trying to get her off of her.
When Elizabeth pushed your grandma, did you see your grandma push back?
No.
You saw them on the ground. How were they on the ground?
Leoma was on the bottom and Heather was on top, with her hands on her and stuff.
Was Heather doing anything?
What do you mean by that?
Was Heather just sitting there?
She was her hands were on her, like she was like trying to get her hands on her, and Leona was like trying to get her hands off of her.
What were you thinking when this happened?
Well, first I was caught off guard. I was also kind of angry.
You were angry. How old were you at the time this happened?
15.
Can you explain angry to me?
Well,
Why you were angry?
I saw Heather attack my grandma, and I love her, and I was thinking of trying to get her off her, but I was hesitating.
Did you didn't try to get Heather off?
No.
So how did the fight stop?
My mom said, get off my mom.
And why did you hesitate?
Because I was thinking of hitting her, but I didn't want to hurt her. That's why I was hesitating.
Did the fight eventually break up?
Yeah.
What happened after everybody got separated?
I think that Heather and Elizabeth picked up Elizabeth's stuff off the ground, put it in the car, and we just kind of went to our cars.
Do you remember if there was any of Elizabeth's stuff still in your car when you were leaving?
I don't remember.
Thank you. No further questions.
Actually, you have him identify the person he's talking about as Elizabeth's mom.
Sorry.
Do you have him identify who he's referring to as Elizabeth's mom?
Yes. So when you're saying Elizabeth's mom, who are you referring to?
Heather.
Heather.
You asked was she in the courtroom, but you didn't have him
I apologize.
specify.
Can you please point to Heather Thelen and describe something she's wearing?
A blue dress.
And she's sitting in this courtroom?
Yes.
Okay, let the record reflect who it is.
The objection.
Can you tell where in relation to me is Ms. Heather Thelen sitting?
To your right.
Thank you. No, I have no objection.
The identification is not.
Thank you. Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Cross examine.
Thank you. All right, Katie. You said that you accompanied your grandmother Leoma and your mother Miranda that day to is it your brother's house, Dakota?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that you're basically just tagging along.
Yeah.
Okay. And is that something you often do? Is accompany your mother or your grandmother places?
If I feel that they're unsafe, I'll accompany them.
So is that what you felt was that they might be a little unsafe that day?
Yeah.
Why did you feel like it might be unsafe?
Elizabeth was telling my brother Austin Hilliker.
Mm-hmm.
She was telling him. Elizabeth was telling Austin to come alone, don't bring anyone, and we found that suspicious. So we told him not to go.
Okay. So your grandmother Leoma, your mother Miranda decided to go in Austin instead.
Yes.
And then you decided to tag along.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then so you say that you stayed in the car momentarily.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
Your mother and your grandmother get out of the car instantly once it's parked.
Yes.
All right. And then you wait, you said about 10 seconds before getting out.
Yes.
Now, you said you were observing, did you stay near your grandmother's car?
Yes.
Okay. And you said that at one point you were just right there at the trunk, right? Where all this happened.
Yes.
Okay. So we're in the cars on the street. So did you stay on the curb?
I was kind of like standing on the street, but next to the car.
Okay. Were you standing like in the middle of the street?
No.
Okay. So you were on the shoulder side of the car.
Yes.
Okay. All right. But how far away from could you touch it? The car?
My grandma's car?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So you just basically stayed real close.
Yeah.
All right. And then you said that, and it was testimony, you remember that Heather's car was in the driveway of Dakota's place, right?
Yes.
All right. So they had to move like maybe 10, 15 feet from the trunk to the back of Heather's car?
Yes.
Okay. is that, so, and then it all happens there at the trunk. So you're saying that your grandmother is getting another arm load and she drops it right in front of her, right?
Yes.
All right, and then and then you're saying, you didn't see Leo, or, you said that you saw Libby push your grandmother. All right, so was your grandmother in front of you or was Libby in front of you?
I think my grandma was in front of me.
Okay, your grandmother's in front of you, so and Libby pushed her from the front in their shoulders, correct?
Yes.
All right, so when you see Libby push your grandmother, you're behind Libby.
I don't remember. I think she was I wasn't directly behind her. She was still like 5 or 10 feet away from me.
Okay, but the car is right there, right?
Yes.
And your grandmother's right there at the trunk, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're near the trunk, so how far away was your grandmother?
Well, she was walking halfway to Heather's car when Libby said it. So she dropped it and turned and faced, her car, grandma's car. That's where Libby was at, and then Libby pushed it.
Okay, and you said that Libby, it's basically you had done 4 car loads, not you, but your mother and your grandmother did it.
Yes.
Your grandmother took arm loads from her trunk to Heather's car.
Yes.
All right, and you said they did that about 4 times.
Yes.
And in that entire time, did Libby say anything?
No.
All right, and did Libby act like she was gonna say anything?
Well, she was saying stuff before I got out of the car. Like I could hear them outside arguing, but
Mhm.
when I got out, they weren't saying anything.
Okay, so up until the 4th or 5th load, Libby didn't have any problems.
Yes.
Libby wouldn't. Okay, so so then you see, so you're there standing there, and did you see, and you were pretty close, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so you're saying that when did you see Heather go behind your grandmother?
Right after Libby pushed her.
Okay, and then you said I thought maybe I'm confusing it. You said on direct that you said that Heather pushed your grandmother into the car.
That's what it looked like, but my mom was around that area, so I thought it was Heather.
You're saying that you saw someone push your grandmother.
Yes.
Okay, and this is after Libby pushed her, right?
Yes.
Okay, but you weren't sure if it was Heather or your grandmother?
No, I wasn't sure. I thought it was Heather. Then after Heather attacked her, I knew it wasn't Heather.
Okay, and then how did they all fall on the ground?
Well, Libby pushed my grandma, and she pushed to the car, and then Heather grabbed her, and kind of slammed her against her car, and then they fell after hitting the car.
So you're saying that this all happened in between their 2 cars. Your grandmother had a load in her hand. She's in between. She gets pushed one way. Which car does Heather throw her into?
Her own car.
Okay, so all right. So somehow and all of this is while how far apart were the cars, would you say?
It was at the edge of the driveway, so it wasn't like up on top, but they'd probably say like 10 feet.
Okay. All right, and you're saying that they both pushed your grandmother?
No.
Okay, only Libby pushed your grandmother?
Yes.
Okay, what did Heather do?
She came from behind and kind of shoved her. She put her hands on the back of her neck, shoved her into her own car.
You mean shoving meaning shoving meaning she propelled her forward into the car?
Yeah, while she was holding her, she kind of pushed her while holding her.
Okay. Held her pushed her while holding her. or something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then, did you see Heather? Did they fall at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, because so Heather shoves your grandmother and then they both go down. Like did you see how they fell?
So Heather grabbed her, shoved her against the car, and she turned around while still having a hold on her,
Mhm.
and my grandma fell, and Heather was holding her, so she fell with her.
Okay. All right. And then you said that Heather fell on top of your grandmother?
Yes.
Okay. And Heather got up off your grandmother when Miranda, your mother, said, "Get off of my mom."
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do you remember? Okay, so then she gets up, your grandmother gets up on her own?
I think Heather gets off of her, and then my grandma does get up on her own.
Okay. And then do you all get in the car?
Yes.
Okay. Do you take off immediately?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. And your grandmother gets behind the drive. Did she drive away?
I don't remember.
Okay. You don't remember? It could have been your mom.
Yeah, it could have been.
Okay. And Your Honor, I don't believe I have any further questions. Thank you.
I'm gonna need to redirect.
Briefly, Your Honor. So when you said Heather had her arms around your grandmother's neck, can you describe that for us?
Which part? On the ground?
No, her putting her arms around her neck. How did she put her arms around her neck?
Well, at the first time, she was from behind her.
Yeah.
And then she had him on the back of her neck. And when she fell on the ground, she was on top of her. She had it around here, around her neck. And she was my grandma, Lee, was trying to get her hands off of her neck.
So it looked like to you, did it look like she was trying to choke her?
Yes.
No, that's where we are.
May this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevens, you may be excused. You can call your next witness.
People call Miranda Stevens.
That's right. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. You can have a seat. There's a microphone that's in front of you. My court reporter is behind you. She has to take down everything that's being stated here today. So if you could keep your volume up, you are wearing a mask, but it's up to you if you wanted to remove it during your testimony. You want to give verbal responses, no head nods or shakes, and you can't do mhm and ahs because we can't make that out well in the transcript, okay?
Okay.
Lastly, if there's an objection, you'll hold your response. I'll make a ruling on the objection. I'll let you know if you can give your answer or not, okay?
Okay.
Please state your first and last name and spell both of them.
Miranda Stevens. Miranda, Miranda. Stevens, Stevens.
Miss Stevens, what's your relationship with Mr. Scott?
That's my mom.
We're gonna go back to September 18th. Were you at 1652 Doc Strong's?
Yes.
What were you doing there?
I was taking Elizabeth her belongings that were at our house.
Do you know Elizabeth?
Yes.
How do you know Elizabeth?
Elizabeth was really good friends with my daughter. for, I think, maybe 6 years at that time.
And so why were you taking her belongings back?
She was staying at my mom's house for a little while and had moved out. So we were giving her stuff back.
Was her stuff in boxes or was it?
It might have been a little bit of a mixture of both.
When you got to 52 Dock Strong's, what happened?
We got out of our vehicles to help put the stuff in Elizabeth's mom's trunk of her car.
Who drove?
My mom drove that night.
Was it your mom and your mom leaving Neoma?
Yes.
Was it her car?
No, it was my car.
So where was your car parked in relation?
My car was parked on just the side of the road, right in front of my son Dakota's trailer.
And where were you moving these belongings to?
From the back of my trunk to Heather's trunk.
And where was Heather's car parked?
Her car was parked in the driveway. It's a small driveway, but it was right there.
So if you're facing the street, where is your car in relation to Heather's car?
I guess if I was standing by my car, I would have turned to the right of where her car is.
Okay. So when you got out, were there any words exchanged?
When I got out, Heather said something about if Austin was gonna act this way, that Austin or I would never be able to see the grandbaby. Or the baby, it would have been his son.
So did you start moving the property?
Yeah,
How many loads did you move?
I wanna say I moved 2 or 3 loads. Figured out we'd help them.
And was your mother, Leoma, moving stuff as well?
Yes.
And Caden, who's Caden in relation to you?
Caden is my youngest son.
And was Caden helping move?
No.
Was Caden out of the car?
He was sitting in the car at first. I know at some point he did get out, but he did stay in for a moment.
So what happened after you got about 3 or 4 loads moved?
When we were getting close to being done, Elizabeth said that she didn't want, which I think she meant my mother, I don't want her touching my things. So my mom had dropped her stuff.
And the stuff that your mom dropped, do you know if it was in a box or was it loose?
I want to say it was loose, and I think it might have been books.
What happened after your mom dropped it?
Elizabeth pushed my mom.
And did you see Elizabeth push your mom?
Yes.
How did she push her?
She just took both hands and just pushed her over, in front, not from behind.
Were they facing each other?
Yeah,
And where were they in relation to your vehicle?
they were standing at the trunk of my car.
Were they on the street side of the trunk?
Yes.
And after Elizabeth shoved your mom, what happened?
I was standing where I was standing. Somehow I got on the other side, kind of by the driveway. So I couldn't see, but in the corner of my eye, I did see Heather walking. I didn't know what she was doing.
So you saw Heather walking toward your mom?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what happened after that?
I was standing there for a brief second, then I seen Caden, just, trying to gather what's going on. I see Caden, he says, "Mom," and I kind of like peer over because I couldn't really see. That's when I seen Heather, had my mom pushed up against her vehicle.
So after Heather, you didn't see Heather push your mom up against the vehicle.
No, I found her that way though.
What happened after that?
I screamed, "Get off my mom, get off my mom." She continued to do that. So I ran around the car the long way. I think I was thinking about getting my phone to call 911 and then got scared to just worry about getting my mom, help. So I ran to my mom, tried to get Heather off my mom.
When you tried to get Heather off your mom, how were they positioned?
At that point, when I went around the car, she had my mom on the ground and was over my mom. So she was kind of on top of her.
Was she, when you say on top of her, can you explain that a little bit more?
Like my mom was laying on the ground and Heather was on top of her, like her whole body.
Was your mom on her back
Yes.
and then Heather was on top of her?
Yeah.
And what happened after that?
I tried to get Heather off my mom, but I wasn't able to. So I stood up and I'm like, okay, I gotta get some energy here. And I went to do a bear hug. I thought, okay, I'm gonna try to get her off by just doing a big bear hug around her.
And is that person that was on top of your mom in the courtroom today?
Yes, she is.
Can you please describe something she's wearing, where she's sitting?
She is sitting right over there in a blue shirt.
Let the record reflect the witnesses identified the defendant.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Identifications noted.
And so you were trying to pull her off. Why were you trying to pull her off?
To save my mom.
What were you thinking in that moment?
I was really worried about my mom's safety, of how hurt she's gonna be. And the fact that she was doing that in front of my 15-year-old son who has autism.
And can you describe one more time how you tried to get her off?
I did a bear hug just over her.
Were you successful at getting her off your mom?
Yes, she did get off my mom at that time. I don't think it was because of my bear hug per se, but I was able to get her off my mom.
Did you see your mom doing anything?
No, she didn't have much of a chance. Maybe her hands were playing around her, but she was pretty much over her.
And after you got Heather off your mom, what did you do?
We just stood there, and my mom asked where her glasses were. Elizabeth helped her, and I think just everybody was a little stunned at what was going on.
Did you leave?
Yes, we did leave.
Did you try to fight Heather or Libby?
When Libby first pushed my mom, I think my body reacted. I never touched her or anything. I went close to her and then stopped myself. I did not do anything to Heather at all.
And then after you left, were police called?
Yeah, we did call the police.
Thank you. No further questions.
Prosecuting.
So you live with your mother, Leoma, at this time?
I did.
Okay, and so at some point you lived with Libby Rowley.
Libby moved in at my mom's house. It was my mom's rental house.
Okay, but you lived with your mom at that time?
Yeah,
Okay, and is it your son Austin that she was dating?
yes,
Okay, and and it was on this day that they broke up, right?
I do believe so.
Okay. So was it Austin that told you to take her stuff over to Dakota's house?
No, I chose to do that because things were acting weird and Elizabeth kept on saying, Austin, bring me my stuff to Cody's house, but come alone. Come alone. And I thought, well, that seems odd. I said, no, you're not going over there. I'll just take her the stuff, you know.
Well, could there have been another reason why she wanted just Austin there?
Maybe she
Objection,
wanted to talk to
speculation.
him. I
But
don't
there's
know.
an
It's
objection,
so
there's an objection.
fishy, and I just
Ma'am,
thought maybe it was that.
ma'am,
Oh,
you
yeah.
hear me talking?
No, sorry.
Okay, I gave an instruction in the beginning, that if there's an objection, you have to stop your response.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay, so that is stricken from the record. The objection was cause for speculation,
Okay.
and so the objection is sustained. You cannot give that response.
Did you said you personally knew Libby?
Yes, I did.
You've known her for years through your daughter Melissa.
Marissa.
Marissa?
Yes.
Thank you. So you had an opinion of her before this day, right?
I knew her for, yeah, 6 years.
Okay, how did you treat her?
I think we got along pretty well. Sometimes I thought Libby kind of reminded me of myself when I was younger.
And how so?
Just, we were both pretty, vibrant people, happy. Just we were able to talk. She just reminded me of myself.
All right, so you had developed some sort of rapport with her.
Yeah.
All right, so but you decided that you weren't going to send Austin, you were going to go with your grandmother to drop off Libby's things at Dakota's house.
Yeah, I was gonna go without my mom, but then my mom decided to go with me.
All right, you were going to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and but you said that your Leoma decided to go with you.
Well, Kaden decided to go with me. He didn't want me to go by myself. And then my mom said, okay, I guess I'll go, because Kaden said, I don't want mom going by herself.
Did it sound like, did your mother, did she do it like kind of just, grudgingly?
My mom went grudgingly.
Yeah, I mean, was she there, did she there feel like she felt like she needed to protect you, or did she just go because she
Objection,
felt like,
speculation.
Objection sustained.
but otherwise, your mother, she said she came home from work that day?
Yes,
All right, and was she in a good mood after work?
I believe so, but I got home after her.
So then you go over to Dakota's house and you park on the street, correct?
Yes,
And was Heather's car, or was Heather and Libby already there?
yes,
All right, and they were parked in the driveway?
yeah,
How long is that driveway?
not very long. It's maybe a car length.
So they were sort of practically at the end of it, right there at the street.
Yeah,
And then, so how far away would you say the trunks were?
not very far. Just maybe a couple inches. They were almost touching.
The trunks were almost touching,
I feel like they were almost touching. Yeah,
but like one trunk is facing the street and one is like perpendicular, right?
yeah.
Okay,
I think
but-
like the one end of mine was maybe close to touching her one end. Not maybe touching, but they were. I thought they were close.
okay. And then you get out, you said that Caden stayed in the car, but you and Leoma get out and you start unloading it from your trunk.
Yes,
All right, and how many, and it was a lot of loose items, was it? Okay, and how many armfuls do you say that you went from trunk to trunk?
I believe I did 2 or 3.
Okay, and at what point do you hear Libby say, "Don't touch my stuff"?
We must have been almost done with the trunk. I feel like there was maybe, that might have been the last load. My mom grabbed out whatever was in there, grabbed it when she said, I don't want her touching my stuff.
All right, but where were you in the unloading process?
I think I was on the other side of the car, like maybe by the sidewalk, more closer to Heather's vehicle.
Okay, and what were you, and do you know how you got there? Because you said that you were taking armfuls, you're taking like 2 or 3 loads. So you go to, you unload a armful into Heather's car. So is there something that you were doing or somewhere you moved to before you heard Libby say that?
No, I think I moved over there after she said that, or I was close. So I might have just squeezed myself through over there. I do not remember really why I went over on that side.
Okay, all right. But so you weren't in the path of the trunks when Libby said it.
I don't remember.
Okay. All right, but what you said was that this all happened at your trunk. Basically, your mom goes to grab a handful of books. Libby says, "I don't want you touching my stuff," right?
Yes.
All right, and then so your mom, she kind of turned somehow, right? And she dropped them.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember if she turned all the way around, or was she facing like with the trunk, like kind of,
Now she was facing exactly like how you are, and that's how Elizabeth was facing.
okay, like this?
Yeah,
Okay, so she just basically drops the books right in front of her.
yeah.
All right, and so you're saying that, and and when this is happening, what, are you behind your mother or are you in front of her, or?
I think I was still on that side. I'm not 100% sure. No, yes, I was, because I did see her push. Elizabeth pushed my mom.
Well,
So I
you
was
just
on that side.
you testified on direct that you saw her out of the corner of your eye,
I seen Heather in the corner of my eye.
Libby. Okay, so you saw Libby and your grandmother's fine, but it was Heather that you're not. So you didn't see where she came from. Okay.
No.
No, sorry.
All right, so you see, but you're not exactly sure where in relation to your mother you are when Libby is standing in front of your grandmother or your mother, ready to push her.
Yeah, I was away from on the other side of the trunk by her and my car.
Okay. Were you in the street, or were you said you were kind of in like where Heather's car is and your car, where you're kind of like in that like kind of corner, kind of where they're kind of almost hitting each other, so you kind of had a blocked path?
Yeah, it was on
Okay.
the sidewalk.
Okay. So, but you said that, so basically almost like is But you don't remember if your mother's facing you, or if she had your back to her. Or
I do believe she was standing by Libby, and Libby had her back to me.
Okay, so so you can see Libby. If I'm your mother and Libby's in front of me and you're somewhere in front of your mother, you can see Libby's back.
Yeah.
All right, so she pushes, and you can see her push Leoma.
Yes,
Okay, and how hard does she push her?
it made my mom stumble a little bit. I think she had a hard time grasping, she didn't fall,
Okay,
but she stumbled.
all right. Was it one of those stumbles where she had to put out her hands, or she just had to take a step back?
It was really dark. I'm not 100% sure if I didn't see her feet or anything, but I seen her kind of go back a little bit.
Okay, yeah, because this happened about around 9:30, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying it was completely dark at that point?
It was dark. There might have been street lights there, so we could see each other, but it was still dark.
Okay, and that's probably why you said that you saw Heather out of the corner of your eye. Probably the darkness, was that also help? Okay.
Yeah.
So you see her push your mother, and then all of a sudden there's Heather behind your mother. All right, so and did you see them fall?
I did not see them fall.
What was blocking your view?
The cars.
Okay,
Standing, I just wasn't looking that way.
you had both cars in your view, blocking your view, or?
More Heather's, I guess, and it was dark. I just couldn't see.
Okay. All right. And then did you see where they were on the ground?
When I walked around the car, I did see her on the ground.
Which car did you have to walk around?
I did walk around my car.
Okay, so you go around, you can't get through, so you go around your car, and that's when you see your mother and Heather on the ground.
When I went around the car, that's when I seen her on the ground with my mom. I first seen her up against the truck when I had peeked over the cars.
Up against it, was she on her feet, or was she?
They were standing up, and my mom had her back to the car, and Heather was over my mom.
But they were on the ground. That's the point where she's on the ground, and you said they're on their feet.
When I first seen her, they were on the truck when I first seen her, but when I went around the truck, or my car, it's not a truck, around my car, that's when I seen her on the ground. So
Okay.
She was up against it at first.
Your mother?
Both of them.
Okay, up against it. And when you mean up against it, the trunk's still open?
No, it looked like it was closed at that time.
Okay, but and at this point you can't remember if you had finished unloading it then, or?
We didn't. Somewhere along the line, the trunk must have been closed. It was open.
Okay.
At one point.
All right, and then you run around your car. So you see them standing up against Heather's truck or SUV. You run around your car. That's at the point in which you see your mother and Heather on the ground.
Yes.
All right, and then and do you go up to them?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you can clearly see Heather over your mother.
Yes.
Now you said that on direct, did you say that she was like laying on your mom?
She wasn't laying, but she was hovering over.
Hovering.
She had her more maybe 10 down, but she was on top of her, but she was not laying.
How was she pinning her down? How was Heather pinning Leoma down?
She had her hand, I think she was trying, at that point, she was trying to punch my mom. So she was over her, her legs were over her, and she was just over her. I'm not really sure what they were doing. I'm just worried about getting my mom off her.
Okay, all right. And then did you try to physically get Heather off of Leoma?
Yes.
Okay, and you said that how did you do that?
I just tried to, from behind her, I just tried to grab her off of my mom, pulled her off. And then the second time I tried to bear hug her.
When you say pull her off of her, so did you go with 2 hands around like her shoulders, or did you try to bear hug her?
Yep, I tried to bear hug her. I just took both my hands and just kind of wrapped my arms around her shoulders and just tried to pull her off my mom.
Okay. And then you said that didn't work.
The first time it did not work.
So, but then you went back and bear hugged her and was able to get off of her?
Yes, yes.
All right. did you, I mean, did you find the strength, or do you think it worked the second time?
I don't know. I was trying to gather myself. I'm trying to get strength. Oh my gosh, I gotta have more muscles here, but to get her off me. So it took me a couple seconds before I went over to get her off my mom again.
All right. And then the whole thing from Libby saying, please, don't touch my stuff or let go, and to you getting, or to Heather and Leoma extricating themselves. How long do you think that took?
I believe that went really quickly. It might have been just maybe 5 minutes.
The whole thing, the whole ordeal took 5 minutes?
Oh, the moving of the stuff, you mean?
Oh, you said, so you mean from the time you parked to the time you left was about 5 minutes?
No, it was more 10. I'm sorry. I was thinking you were talking about the fight.
Yeah, I was talking, that was my original question, the fight. How long from Libby telling, everything seems fine until Libby says, don't touch my stuff, and then Leoma drops her books, and then we get physical. From the time Libby said that to the time Heather and Leoma basically get up and separate, how long did that take?
Maybe 3 to 5 minutes. It was not very long.
Okay, so was there some sort of argument? Because it sounds like it got physical real fast, and then that physicalness.
No, there wasn't really any argument other than Libby saying that I don't want Lee to touch my stuff, and then that's when it escalated.
Okay, because it seems like, Libby goes to push, Heather goes to shove, pushes in, and you're saying that they were on the ground for like 3 to 5 minutes?
No, maybe not, maybe a minute.
All right. And then you said that, do you recall whether you had finished unloading, or you said earlier that you don't really remember, you think you were done, trunk was closed, right?
I think the truck was, my trunk was still open, and the load my mom had dropped on the ground was the last load. I believe that was the last load.
Okay, all right, and but you guys, you got instantly back in the car, or did anything happen after they extricated?
After the fight happened, everyone's standing around. My mom had glasses. She couldn't find them. Elizabeth did try to help her find them. We grabbed our glasses and they got in their car, we got in our car, and went our separate ways.
Okay, all right. All right, no further questions.
Let me redirect.
Here we are. Mom wear her glasses every day.
Yes.
After the incident, did you see your mom again?
Yeah, her and I lived together, so I was with her.
You saw her how was she after that?
She was pretty bruised up, pretty sore. I had to take her to urgent care that evening. And she had bruises quite in a few different spots.
Nothing for you.
Okay, and Ms. Willis be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. May be excused.
Thank you.
We're taking a recess.
Honor, may we approach really quick?
No, we may. Okay, I'm back on the record. Did any of the jurors have any questions of those witnesses that was not answered? That you already wrote down? No, any questions? I didn't see any hands go up, so I assume there were no questions. You did have a question? Well, if your questions were supposed to be written down, you can't ask it out loud. You did have a question, sir?
It was taken care
Okay, very good.
I'll write it down.
Right, because I have to determine whether or not it can be asked. I thought it was getting cooler. I don't know. It's hot. It's hot. Okay. I don't think that we have a question that I need to address. But that's part of what your job is here for, to determine the conflict in the response. So, other than that, any other questions? Oh. We'll recall Miranda and ask this question. Are they in the conference room?
Yeah.
Conference
same one.
conference room.
Okay, Miranda, you're still under oath.
Still want me to raise my hand?
Nope, you're still under oath.
Okay.
And we did have a question from the jury, and the question is, what direction was your car facing in relation to Heather's car?
My back was towards her back. She was in the driveway. I don't think I can show you by hands, but my trunk was facing basically sideways to her trunk. Her trunk was in one direction, mine was facing a different direction, so they were not the same direction.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay, and then, although I think the majority of the first question is the actual duty of the jury, so I'll let them determine that. I do think one portion I can ask here was, how did the parties how did they get separated?
The parties get separated?
Yeah, when allegedly you said that Heather was on Leoma,
Yes.
how did they separate?
I pulled her off and she might have moved with me as I was pulling her off.
Who is
Then-
she? When you say she, you talk about Heather?
Heather.
Okay,
Yeah, I found that.
okay, no problem. Any other questions based on that? Any redirect based on that? Any cross based on that?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You can be excused again. Okay, and we are going to take a 10-minute recess because you all have been sitting for about an hour and a half at a time here. Okay, everyone is back. Here we're back on the record. You can call your next witness.
Yeah, people rest.
Okay, very good. Will you be calling any witnesses?
Your Honor, at this time, we'd be calling to the stand Elizabeth Rowley.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury? Thank you. You can have a seat. Okay, a couple of rules. There's a microphone that's in front of you, and this is my court reporter right behind you. So she is to have to take down everything that's being stated. So I need responses to be loud and clear. And then they also must be verbal responses, no head nods, head shakes, uhs, okay? Then also your voice is a little light. So even if it feels like you're yelling, I want you to yell it out because we all have to hear. And I just turned on a fan in here because it's really hot and she's struggling to hear. So we want to make sure she can get an accurate record. If you hear one of the attorneys jump up and say objection, you stop your answering immediately. I have to make a ruling on the objection and then I can tell you if you're allowed to answer the question or not, okay? Can you state your first and last name and spell both of them?
Libby Rowley, Libby Rowley.
You can proceed, counsel.
Thank you, Ms. Rowley. Like Judge said, you want to be able to speak loud enough. So I always just say, like, act like if you ever acted or been on stage, just project your voice that way, basically. All right, so we're going to go back. We're going to start off with September 18th of 2019, so 3 years ago. This incident happened in the evening, but I want to start off that morning. Where were you staying at that point? Where did you wake up?
I woke up at Cody Phillips' house, which is Leoma's grandson.
Now, when you say Cody, is that short for something?
Yes, Dakota.
Okay. And how long had you been living at Dakota's house at that point?
Maybe 2 weeks.
All right. So you woke up, you were living there at Cody's with your boyfriend Austin. All right. And then what did you do after you woke up?
I probably went to the bathroom to throw up because I was pregnant.
All right. But what did you and Austin do that day?
I think we kind of just hung out and watched TV for a few hours, and then around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we went to my mom's house.
And why were you going to your mom's house?
Just to visit, because I don't see my mom that often.
Okay, so and Austin came with you?
Yeah.
All right, and while you were there, was there some sort of argument that you got into with Austin?
I didn't get into an argument with Austin. My mom's boyfriend at the time got into an argument.
What was their argument about?
They were arguing.
Objection, you say.
The objection is sustained.
Yeah, so then you got they got into an argument.
Objection, relevance.
Well, I don't know what the relevance is. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I'm just setting up the scene, laying down the facts for the jury.
I'll allow it.
So they got into an argument, and what did Austin do?
Austin got into my mom's boyfriend at the time's space, and they started getting at it. So I stepped in between them and separated them, and Austin left.
Okay. And and then after he left, did he text you?
Yes.
All right. What did he text you after he left?
Objection, hearsay.
Oh, let me ask you a different way. In that text message, did Austin
Okay.
break up your relationship?
I guess she's
Yes.
withdrawing the
I'm
question.
withdrawing the question.
Okay.
I'll re-ask it.
Sounds good.
In the text message Austin sent to you later, did he break up with you?
Yes.
Objection, facts not in evidence.
She's putting it in evidence. She's saying that he basically broke up with her at that point. It's not hearsay because I'm not saying, they're not exactly what the words were said, but basically he dumped her.
Objection is overruled.
He dumped you.
Yes.
All right. So then you continue to text him because you want to try to get your stuff, right?
No, at that point, I had just told my mom I needed to get my stuff, so we got in the vehicle and we headed over to Dakota's house.
Did you let Dakota know ahead of time?
I had a key to the apartment, to the trailer, since we were living there, so I kind of just went and got my stuff because he was at work and I just wanted to get it done alone. So
All right. But you wanted to you had stuff at Leoma Scott's house
yes,
and you need to get that back. All right. And you tried to get it back through Austin?
I did.
All right. And and he said that he confirmed that he would give you your stuff back, right?
Yes,
All right. So, and it was your understanding that you would be getting your stuff back when you went over to Dakota's house.
yes.
All right. So so how long were you at Dakota's house before Leoma, Miranda, and Kaden got there?
Maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
All right. Did it take you that long to unload your stuff from Dakota's home?
Yes, I had quite a bit of stuff in the trailer.
Okay. And so by that point, how much room was left in your mom's car?
Enough to fit what was left in Leo's car.
All right. And how much would you say you had left at Leoma's house?
The trunk full.
All right. And was it packed in boxes or bags?
No, it was, some of it was in bags and some of it was just loose.
All right. So you're waiting in the driveway, and then Leoma drives up, correct? And by this time, it's already is there any light out anymore?
Not at this point, no.
So how far away would you say the walk was from Leoma's trunk to the back of your mom's car?
Between like 5 and 10 feet, because I didn't have to take a lot of steps to get to my mom's car.
Okay. Now, were you unloading any of your stuff from Leoma's car?
Yes,
Okay, so you were grabbing stuff from her car.
yes.
All right. So when do you remember when they got out of the car? Do you remember if Leoma, Miranda, or Kaden said anything to you? I mean, just what did they say stuff to you?
They did.
Okay. All right. Did it sound pleasant?
No.
Okay. All right. So then Leoma goes to the back of the car.
Objection, leading.
This is a direct, so, yeah.
Okay. So
Raise the question.
Do you-
Objection sustained.
did you see Leoma get out of the car?
Yes,
All right. And what did Leoma do?
she went to the trunk to open the trunk.
All right. And then after she opened the trunk, what did she do then?
She grabbed a pile of my stuff and she walked into my mom's SUV as I was walking to the trunk to start grabbing some of my stuff.
Okay. And then Leoma puts your stuff in the back of the SUV. All right. And then at what point did you tell Leoma to stop like moving your stuff?
After Miranda started throwing my stuff in the SUV, I asked them politely if they could stop touching my stuff so I could just do it myself. And Leoma threw whatever she had in her hand, she threw it on the ground to her left.
So you're saying Leoma's daughter Miranda was moving your stuff, like you said, throwing it?
She was throwing it into the SUV.
Okay, and so you didn't want her to do it so haphazardly? Okay, so you told both of them to stop moving your stuff?
I did.
Okay. And when you did that, you said Leoma had, what was in her arms? Do you remember?
She had a book bag with some notebooks in it and then some more notebooks on top of it. And she threw them.
Okay, so setting the scene, you said that the cars were about 5 to 10 feet away. And you said Leoma this all had, was she in front of, like, standing in front of her trunk?
She was standing off to the left side of the trunk, because
Okay.
I was more in the middle.
Okay, and then, so when you're talking to her, you're telling her, please don't do this, or what, are you looking her, like, you squared up to her, you standing her in front of her?
Was more of an angle, so I was facing between her and the car, but not directly after.
Okay, and then when she, and then does she toss your stuff, would you just let it go, or?
She tossed it.
When you make that motion, are you saying that she tossed it to her side?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and so at this point, what do you do?
I stand there for a second in shock, and then I walk past her, and my shoulder taps her in her chest, and I grab my stuff.
So you're saying so you're saying at that point you walk past her and she's like basically facing perpendicular to you? Because you said that your shoulder hits her chest. Okay. Now, does it cause her to, does it cause her to move? Do you hit her, like, bump into her hard enough to move her?
No.
Okay. Because she's still there at the trunk, right? So you go to move past her and you bump into her with your shoulder, and then what happens?
I bend over to grab my stuff, and she immediately grabs my arm and pulls me.
Which arm?
My left arm. My
Okay.
bicep.
So she grabs the left arm, and what does she do?
She pulls on me, and she grips really hard. I have scratches on my arm.
Okay, and she pulls you so hard that it causes you to move?
Yes.
Okay, and it causes there to be some sort of injury. All right. Did you? Okay, and so how long did she grab? How long did you say what she was grabbing?
She had my arm for a total of 15 seconds at least.
Okay, I mean, so you're talking about like 1,000, 2,000. The struggle is for 15 seconds. So are you trying to pull out, or?
Yes.
Okay, all right, but you can't break her grip. Okay, and
Is
then
that a no?
No, sorry.
okay, so then what happens?
And then my mom gives her a bear hug from behind to try and keep her off and hold her back. They took a couple of steps back, and my mom took in a pothole, and they fell towards their left, making them both hit their heads on the SUV, and then they fell onto the ground and hit their heads on the ground.
Okay, so you saying you saw the whole thing, right?
Yes.
All right, and what happened is that, so you're struggling with her on your arm, and then did you see your mom come up behind Leoma?
Faintly.
Okay, but all of a sudden, what did you see?
I seen my arms wrap around Leoma and take a couple of steps back.
Yeah, okay, and then did you see them fall?
I did.
Okay, and did you see, and you said that you saw them fall, and they both kind of like
Fell towards their left.
fell towards their left, fell together, fell and hit the
SUV.
your mother's car,
Yes.
and then how did they fall? Did they was Heather on top of Leoma, or Leoma on top of Heather?
Leoma was on top of my mom.
Okay, and then so they're on the ground, and what is Leoma doing?
Struggling to get away from my mom.
Okay.
I had her pretty close.
Okay, was your mom still holding on to her?
Yes.
Okay, when did your mom let go of her?
About 30 or 45 seconds after they hit the ground.
So they were basically, she still had her arms wrapped around her. And when did your mom let go?
After I asked her to let her go.
Okay, and you basically what at that point, why didn't you ask her to let go before then?
I was kind of just in shock that everything was happening so fast. I trying to process, and once I did, I asked her to let her go.
Now, did you see where Miranda, Austin's mom, was in all this?
She was standing over my mom, pulling her hair and touching her in the head.
Well, did you see where she was? Did you see where she was before the fall?
Before the fall, she was standing kind of behind me, but also where I could see her. So
But was she in between? Was she in between the trunks of the cars, or was she
Yes.
standing somewhere else?
she was standing between the trunks. of the
Okay.
car.
Okay, so and then you saw when after they fall, she comes out from what? From what side? The left or the right to come at your mom?
My left, but they're right.
Okay, so you're okay. So all right, and then you say you see Miranda try to grab your mom's hair,
Yes.
and of course you're in shock. And eventually, you say let go,
Yes.
and then your mom let go.
Yes.
All right, and then Leoma and your mother are able to get up.
Yes.
Okay, and then they basically there's no further physicalness after that.
No.
And then was there a time at which so it seemed like at that point things calmed down?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you help Leoma get her glasses?
They were on the ground. She asked where they were, so I pointed at them.
Okay. And how are you feeling during all this?
Confused. and
Yeah.
scared.
And then by that point, had the unpacking been done or?
Not completely. Leoma had gotten into the car and I finished grabbing my stuff and closed the trunk.
All right, and then you finished putting that stuff in your mom's trunk, right?
Yes.
At that point, did you close her back hatch?
Yes.
Did Leoma say anything after she got up?
No.
All right, did she do anything?
Just got in the car.
All right, did she get in the driver's seat?
Yes.
Okay, and then did Miranda say anything before she got in the car?
No.
Okay. And then was Caden already in the car, or did he get in?
He got in when Miranda got in.
Did they drive off immediately?
As soon as the trunk was closed.
Okay. Your Honor, any further questions?
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Art. Ms. Raleigh, did you write here to report with your mom today?
Yeah.
In the last 3 years, how many times have you talked about the case with your mom?
Not very often.
Do you have a number you can give?
1 or 2 times.
Did you speak to the police about this matter?
No,
You didn't give a statement to the police?
I don't think so.
Would seeing a copy of your statement that you gave to the police help refresh your recollection?
Probably.
May I approach, Your Honor?
May.
I can't even remember this.
And at that time, you told the police that you shoved Leoma.
I did not tell the police that I shoved him.
So you broke up a fight earlier in the day?
Yeah.
Your mom was in a fight earlier.
No.
The items that Leoma tossed on the ground, were they breakable items?
No.
How old were you at the time of this incident?
18.
And how many different places have you lived before that?
life or just like a couple of years? Like that, or-
Within the last year.
Your Honor, I would object. I don't see the relevance of that question.
Objection sustained. You don't need to answer that question.
Did you reside with your mom at the time of this incident?
No,
Why?
I don't see the relevance of that either, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
How often did you see your mom? Do you see your mom? How often in the last 3 years have you seen your mom?
once every few months.
And you didn't talk about this case at all?
No,
You didn't review any police reports before?
no.
So you said Leoma held your arm for 15 seconds?
Yep.
Exactly 15 seconds?
Maybe not exactly 15 seconds.
On the rec, you were pretty sure that it was 15 seconds.
Because of the same.
And then you saw your mom on top of Leoma?
Leoma was on top of my mom.
So when they fell, Leoma was on top of your mom?
Yes,
Did you try to separate them? Why?
because like I had told her, I was in shock, so I was still processing everything that was happening.
You,
I
sep-
did step closer, not to let each other go.
you separated a fight earlier in the day,
Yes,
and you had to ask your mom to let go, right?
Yeah.
You had to tell your mom to stop, right?
yeah,
That's because she wasn't stopping by herself.
but she was protecting her daughter and her unborn grandbaby.
She could have stopped, right,
She put out,
and walked away,
yeah,
but she didn't until you told her.
Yeah.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Can you redirect?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Witness. Oh, well, do you have any questions from the jury? Okay, this may be excused. Thank you, Ms. Rowley. You can call your next witness.
All right, Your Honor. With that, we would be calling Heather Thelen to the stand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give is the truth and the whole truth under penalty of perjury? You can have a seat, ma'am. Okay, Ms. Thelen, you understand that you have the right to be presumed innocent. You have the right to remain silent at trial and not have silence be used against you. By testifying today, you would be given up that right. Are you willing to do that today? Be given up that right of your own will, or do you feel threatened or forced to do that? You're making a decision on your own that it's in your best interest? Okay, and you discussed that with your attorney? You understand that by testifying, you will now are allowing the prosecution the opportunity to cross-examine you, correct? Okay, and so you've heard the rules that I've given everybody else about verbal responses and then objections, correct? Okay, counsel, you can proceed.
Thank you. All right, Heather, going back 3 years, do you remember the events of September 18th, 2019?
Yes.
All right, and what happened that you recall that happened between you and your daughter, Libby, and her boyfriend, Austin?
She had come over, she was telling me that she wasn't feeling good and she was nauseous and she was trying to figure out ways to help with the nausea. And she was really tired a lot. So we were talking about things that she could do that would be different, something that would help, like salting crackers, small naps. And then Austin said that.
Objection, per se.
Do you want to address the objection?
Yes, Your Honor. No, yeah, just,
Withdraw the question.
no, I'm not
Well,
withdrawing
that's
the question. She answered that she was answering, but we'll stop you right there.
Okay, the objection sustained.
So, you were having a visit with your daughter and, Mr. Austin got upset over something?
He got upset because he had no sympathy for the way that she was feeling during her pregnancy.
All right. And and your daughter was 18 at the time?
Yes.
How old was Austin?
24, I believe.
So there was, did he get into an argument with anyone else in your home?
Just my boyfriend.
Okay. And then he left, correct?
Yes.
Right. And then so Libby was left there, correct? Okay, and she was at your house when she received word from Austin that he was breaking up with her.
Yes.
All right. And Libby told you about how she needed her stuff?
Yes.
All right. So was the plan for Libby to stay with you?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you know any of like Miranda or Leoma or Dakota?
I had met Miranda a couple of times in passing just because Libby and Marissa were friends.
Okay. And that relationship had been for how long?
I think they met at the end of elementary school.
All right. And then so you knew Miranda. What about Leoma?
I have never met them.
Okay. And had you ever been to like Dakota's house? Okay. And you said so you and Libby got Libby's possessions out of Dakota's home, correct?
Yes.
All right. And then you had to wait a little bit for when did you expect Austin to be there?
So Libby had called Austin because she wanted to talk about it and she wanted to work things out because she still wanted them to be together. So that's why she had asked him to come over. Instead, Leoma and Miranda had showed up with Kaden and had her stuff.
All right. And were there any pleasantries exchanged?
Miranda told me that my daughter was a
Objection.
whore.
Okay, there was an objection?
No, I don't have any reason to object. So,
Objection sustained.
but basically, whatever they did, they have to say it wasn't nice.
Correct.
All right. So then, did everyone start grabbing stuff out of the trunk or?
No. I hadn't seen Kaden yet. I didn't even know he was there. Leoma had walked around to the back and opened the trunk. And she grabbed a handful. And Miranda had grabbed a handful. And Libby was still standing by me at the time.
Mhm.
So as they were walking to my car, she was walking to theirs.
Okay. And did you go to grab any stuff out of the trunk?
No.
Okay. Did Libby get any stuff out of the trunk?
She had grabbed a handful of stuff.
Okay. And then so they all had handfuls and they were supposed to put it in the back of your car?
Yes.
All right. And did they put it in the back of your car?
Well, they threw it in the back of the car, but yes.
Okay. Is that the point at which Libby speaks up?
Yes.
Okay. And then we've been setting the scene. How far apart would you say your trunks were from each other?
So Trailer Park's driveway is probably 2 cars. I was in the farthest space. There was a car space and then her car on the side of the road.
Okay, so estimating how far away that was.
Maybe 10, 15 feet maybe.
And then, so at some point, Libby she's telling both Leoma or just Leoma
Both
Marina
Leoma and Miranda.
to let her get her stuff.
Yes.
And what does Leoma do when Libby asked her that?
I don't know if she made a comment, but I seen her reach over and grab Libby's arm and start squeezing it. and all I could see was the wincing on Libby's face from the pain. And then she said, "Let me go." And
Okay.
she kind of like moved her arm so Leoma would let go, but she grabbed tighter.
How far away from Libby and Leoma were you when this happened?
Probably at that point, I was halfway in between both cars.
Okay, and they're over closer to the trunk?
Yes.
All right. So you see Libby struggling with Leoma on her arm, and then what do?
I started to walk over there. And Libby had gotten free at that point, and so I hugged Leoma from the back.
Mhm.
Just so her arms could be down, she couldn't grab at Libby, she couldn't hit Libby, she couldn't do anything to her.
And how tall are you?
5'4.5".
Okay. All right, so you did not make any, you used both arms. There wasn't you didn't use like one arm and it was up near her neck?
No.
Okay, it was both arms around her shoulders.
Yeah.
All right. And did was there a struggle when that happened?
Because all I had done is I had put my arms around her and I had leaned back just to get her away from Libby.
Okay, and what happened when you leaned back?
I was in flip-flops and I tripped over the sidewalk. So when I tripped, we fell into my car.
Okay, so all right, so you get directly behind her and you're leaning back and you said that you tripped on the curb.
Yes.
Okay. And so you started to fall.
Yes.
All right, and therefore she started to fall.
Yes.
But you said that, what did you guys both hit besides the ground?
So we hit the side of my SUV. When I was trying to gather my footing, there was a pothole behind me in the road that I had slipped in. And so when I fell, I still had a hold of her and a hug. And so we both fell back onto the ground.
All right, and when you fell, and you finally fell and hit the ground, did you land on top of Leoma or did Leoma land on top of you?
She landed on top of me because I had her in the hug. So I had slid to the side, so she was on my arm and I was trying to get up.
So you're saying that you weren't on top of Leoma at all, you were underneath her.
Right.
And it was basically, you said which arm was stuck underneath her?
This one.
Okay. All right. And how long did it, so when you fell and you fell in the bear hug, when did you let go of her?
When I was trying to get my arm out from underneath her.
Did you hear Libby say let go?
I didn't hear her, but I heard Miranda when she came up and grabbed the back of my hair.
Okay, she said let go.
Yeah.
So you were holding on until Miranda said let go.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long do you think you were still holding on to her after you guys fell on the ground?
I mean, I really wasn't like holding on to her at that point. I was trying to get my arm out from underneath her.
Okay. All right. So you when you fell on the ground, you're saying you didn't hold on to her any longer?
No, because I fell and I just wanted to get up.
Okay.
At the time, I was extremely overweight. I weighed 375 pounds. So it took a lot of extra work to get up off the ground and to get her off of me.
Yeah. Did you get up yourself or did you need help?
Yeah, I ended up getting up at this point.
Okay. All right. And did Leoma need help getting up?
No.
Okay. And after you guys both got up, there wasn't anything else further. All right. No. And do you recall what if Leoma and Miranda and Caden, how quickly they got in the car?
Like almost as soon as everything was done and Leoma got up, they got in the vehicle.
Okay. Do you remember if you guys had completely unloaded her trunk at that point?
I didn't even know what was in the trunk to begin with because I never helped move any of the stuff from the trunk.
Okay. So basically during the unload, you stayed to the side?
I stood by my car.
By your car. Okay. All right. And then how long did they stay long after they got in the car? You remember?
I don't know how long they stayed because at that point we had gotten in my car and we were getting ready to leave as well.
And you ended up going to urgent care, right?
I did.
Okay, for what?
I had broken my foot in the process.
Okay, you had to, and after urgent care, you had to go to the hospital for that?
I had to have a boot put on for 6 weeks.
Okay, and it was because you had broken your foot?
Yes.
Okay. Do you Libby currently still live together? Okay. How long did she live with you after that day?
For about 6 months. And then she moved in with her dad.
You don't have no further questions.
Yeah.
This happened 3 years ago. Get the police report for this.
Nothing. I never spoke to the police at all
You never spoke with the police?
No.
Why not?
because they never got a hold of me.
They tried to call you multiple times.
The number that's on there is not the right number, so they wouldn't have been able to reach me.
Did you know your daughter spoke to the police?
Yes.
Why didn't you call them after that?
Because they didn't say anything about wanting to talk to me.
Were you with your daughter when she called the police?
No.
So you got up first after you and Leoma were on the ground,
Yes,
but she was on top of you.
I slid her off me.
And you said Libby was free. Libby, you said on direct, you said Libby was free.
Nobody was free.
Libby was free of Leoma's grasp.
Yeah.
And then you attacked Leoma.
I didn't attack her. I hugged her.
You hugged her. It was a friendly hug.
It was a hug from behind.
A hug that you would give your daughter.
I hugged my daughter like that.
A hug that you would give me.
Sure.
Did Leoma ask to be hugged?
No,
And you didn't stop when you were on the ground until somebody told you to.
I mean, once I was on the ground, I didn't even really have a grasp of her anyways.
But you didn't stop until somebody asked you. You testified that
Stop what? Laying on the ground?
you testified that you didn't stop or get up until Miranda, you heard Miranda.
No, Miranda grabbed my hair and started punching me in the head
Why didn't you tell police about that?
because the police weren't there,
But you didn't call them and tell them?
because I didn't want to press charges.
So 3 years later, this is the first time we're hearing about any hair pulling.
But
Is that a
nobody had
yes?
heard my side of the
Is that a
story.
yes?
So
Is that a yes or a no? 3 years later, this is the first time we're hearing about the hair pulling.
yes. But at the same time,
And so-
nobody had
so-
heard my side of the story.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask you a question. And so once Libby was free, you could have walked away, right?
I mean, it depends.
Yes or no? You could have walked away.
No,
You couldn't have walked. You had a car. You could have drove away.
I mean, I could have.
Those are the questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
All right, so we've heard a lot of testimony today. So basically, when it comes to what you remember happening that evening, was that you didn't, someone said, Libby said you didn't need anyone to tell you to let go of Leoma Scott.
Right, I was trying to get her off.
You instantly kind of let it go of her. Okay, and then it was just basically the process of extricating yourselves.
Right.
And then Your Honor, that's all I need. Thank you.
Okay, you may be excused, ma'am. You may be excused from the witness stand. Unless we had a question for her. Do we have a question? From the jury? Okay, Ms. Thelen, can you join us here on the stand? And you're still under oath. The first question is, when you fell, was the SUV, was it the back of the driver's side or the passenger side?
The passenger side.
Okay. The second question I will not ask because that's essentially a conflict that the jury needs to determine. The third question. Did you trip on the curb or sidewalk, or was there a pothole that made you fall?
So the first time I had tripped on the sidewalk, the second time I had slipped on the pothole.
Any other questions? Sorry, I saw someone ready. No? Okay, very good. Any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Any rebuttal witnesses or party?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, sounds good. Did you need a brief recess before you proceed to closing?
I would like a brief recess, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. We'll recess for 10 minutes. Again, you're not free to deliberate at this time or discuss the facts, okay? Thank you. 2.2. A person accused of a crime. 2.5. Two point six. Plus 310, 311. 312, but it's hidden, and so we need it if needed. About the verdict of them being unable to reach a verdict. 313, possible penalty. 314. How to communicate from the jury room. 315, 316. 317. Everybody, you guys agreed on the jury verdict form?
Yes. Yeah,
I don't know that 4.1 was necessary.
4.1, Your Honor. I don't think so.
Okay, I'll hide it.
And I believe no, I don't think there was any statements. Yeah.
4.3. 4.7.
I don't think 4.7.
Right. Yeah, hide that. As 4.9. 416. Oh, let me go back to 4.9.
Did you want to just simplify it by just putting in she or prosecutor, he or she? It actually. Prosecutor is in this case, Mr. Rain. That's for 4.16.
So 116. 5.2. The elements again. And then defense of others. Is it Elizabeth Rowley? Did I spell her name right?
I think Raleigh is just too easy to be in.
Yeah.
Instead of a Y, right? Yeah, it's too easy instead of. Yeah, and then also. Yeah. I'm gonna just.
Yeah.
And she's not asserting in self-defense, it's defense of Elizabeth Rowley, correct?
Yes.
Well, Your Honor, are we giving 7.20 the burden of self-defense?
I'm sorry?
7.20 is the burden of proof self-defense. So the defendant doesn't have to prove that they acted in self-defense, and so the prosecutor must prove the unreasonable doubt that the defendant did not.
7.2, I will add that.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, maybe I didn't.
Oh, you're fine. 7.22, yeah, that's- I'm gonna add this.
Definition of person violence. Definition of self-defense. I think that they're consenting except for the defendant saying it's like a hug that should give anyone else. Maybe, I don't know. You gotta read them. 7:14. As is in the instructions work for some time, any of the shut Mr. Farmer there.
Okay, I've added 7.20 after 7.22. Anything else?
And then 20.25 testimony need not be corroborated. It's just that to prove this charge is not necessary that there be evidence other than the testimony if the victim, if that testimony proves the unreasonable doubt.
You said 20.1?
2-5.
2-5. And I think that's all I saw, but everything else was fine.
This, the 20.25 is under.
It's under
sex
sex
crimes.
crimes, Your Honor, and it's a permissive instruction where if they are crossing on the amount of evidence to show corroboration of the victim, then it can be used in any assaultive crime, but it is permissive. Your Honor does, it's discretionary. It's completely up to Your Honor.
Well, I'll allow Ms. Donnelly to opine.
Your Honor, I believe, which instructions, I think you do talk about using, which stuff can be used. I'm wondering if it's just, if it's already in there, is necessary defense evidence. Testimony, it's not necessary to have anything other than testimony. I think you use that as long as I don't mind including it. I thought it was already included because it's underneath
That's that, I suppose.
Yeah. Testimony.
Warm night like this. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, no, so usually that's like having about. Oh, yeah.
It's Leoma Scott. That's what I.
Oh,
Leoma Scott.
Okay, very good.
Leoma.
Yep.
Oh, sorry. Got it.
Okay, we have criminal jury instruction to 20.25 in there. Anything else you want to add?
Anything else, Robert?
Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, sounds good. I am going to press save on this. And we can bring the jury back in.
Oh.
Credibility?
Yeah,
It's in
right?
there.
Yeah, it's in there. I found it.
Okay, looks like we're all back. You can be seated. Thank you for your patience. Took a break and then we had to handle some final instructions that you'll receive following the closing statements. We'll start with the prosecution.
When I opened up, I talked to you about anger and frustration, about how people react to that anger and to that frustration. Miss Thelen was already angry. She had dealt with an argument earlier in the day. It was upset her, frustrated her. She was dealing with a daughter being broken up with. Upset. It's upsetting. It's frustrating. We go over to this to get her daughter stuff. They were there for a while. They were getting the stuff. She was frustrated. She was angry. We heard from Leoma Scott how she didn't know the defendant at all. She never met her. She'd never seen her before. She had no reason to throw words at her. She had no reason to say anything mean. She had no reason to even talk to her. She was there helping deliver some of her daughter's stuff. You heard that the defendant's daughter, Libby, from her, she said, yeah, they were moving my stuff. I told her to stop. You heard Leona say she dropped it. You heard Libby say she tossed it. Tossing somebody's stuff. It was books. It was nothing breakable. That's not enough to provoke an attack on a person. But that frustration had been built up. That frustration was there. You heard from Leoma how Libby pushed her out of the way when she tossed her stuff. And then Heather, already upset, frustrated from the day, attacked her from behind and took her to the ground. You heard from her son Caden, her grandson Caden, who was only 16 at the time. He was outside and watching. He saw. He told you what he saw. He didn't have any reason to lie about what he saw. He's not getting anything special for being here to tell you guys what he saw today. He was here to tell you what he saw happen. And it was 3 years ago. So there might be some conflicting things from 3 years ago. I can't remember what I had last week for dinner, but I mean, 3 years ago is a long time for that conflicting testimony. You heard how he saw his grandmother get pushed to the side, and then how he watched as the grandmother got taken to the ground. You heard how he felt in that moment. So he was shocked and scared. He hesitated. He didn't know what to do. He's 16. He didn't know what to do. You heard Miss Thelen say she weighed about 300 pounds at the time. You saw Leoma today. She's not that big. So it's reasonable for Kaden not to step in and to be shocked and not to do anything in that moment. You heard that Heather continued when they were on the ground, and that somebody had to yell for her to get up and to stop. Miranda says she yelled for her to stop. Libby said she yelled for her to stop. But she didn't stop until she heard somebody yelling, stop. You heard from Miranda, who got up to tell you what she saw. Again, she didn't have any special reason to lie today. And she didn't. She got up and she told you what happened. She could have got up and told you she saw the whole thing. She could have got up and told you that she saw Heather take the grandma to the ground. That's not what she told you. She got up and she told you that she did see Libby push her grandma. She didn't see Heather take her mom to the ground. What she saw was the aftermath, was Heather on top of her mom on the ground. You saw a picture of Leoma's injuries, and you heard from Leoma on how it affected her and the aftermath of it. You heard that they called the police, they gave their statements, and then they went about their business that day. The defense's witness, Libby, she got up and she told you that Leoma squeezed her arm. And she told you how her mom had her pretty good, got Leoma pretty good, had her pretty good on the ground. And you heard how she said she had to tell her mom to stop, because her mom wasn't stopping, because there was nothing that was going to stop her. She was mad and she was upset, and it took somebody yelling to get her to stop, to realize what was happening. You heard from the defendant herself, who said the victim got up first, or the victim got up last. She got up first. She got up first because somebody told her to stop. She heard Miranda telling her to stop. She didn't talk. She didn't go to the police. She didn't call the police. She didn't make any statements. And she's coming here today, 3 years later, and there was all of a sudden hair pulling. Charges are assault and battery. Proven assault and battery, I have to prove that there was a force beyond a reasonable doubt. There was an offensive touching, forcible touching against Leoma Scott, and that the defendant intended to cause that touching. Those are the two things that I have to prove. I don't have to prove what color shirt they had on that day. Those are the two things that I have to prove. The defendant had the feeling did violently touch Leoma Scott. You heard her. She said she hugged her from behind, hugged her hard enough to take her to the ground. It was just a hug. That's still enough. That's an offensive touching that she didn't consent to. And she intended to do it. She told you herself, I did it. I meant to do it. And that's enough. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would ask that you find the defendant guilty of assault and battery. Thank you.
I didn't have any issue here. It's just deleting stuff on its own. Okay, you can proceed.
Thank you. So obviously 5 different stories, not all of them seeming to exactly line up. Obviously it's 3 years ago, it was at night. So, I mean, can be a lot of explanation, a lot of understanding. But what it seems like is we have a general dispute over a very particular fact. And that is what did Leoma Scott do that night? The prosecutor's witnesses are obviously saying that it was an attack from both Heather and Libby. The defense witnesses say that no, it wasn't just us, that Leoma did get physical with Libby, and therefore Heather came to her defense. Again, the stories that, some things that don't line up, you're going to have to weigh that. Again, this is all coming down to you deciding who is more credible, you deciding what the truth is. You can believe one or all of the stories or somewhere in between. In the end, though, again, the elements of the crime are that there was an offensive touching, it was non-consensual, it was intended to be a touching, and then of course there is an instruction that you will receive that allows for reasonable force to be used when necessary to defend someone else. So if Miss Thelen was under reasonable belief that she could use a bear hug to restrain Miss Scott, to stop her from further, grabbing or assaulting Libby, then that would be defense of others, and she would be not guilty of the crime of assault and battery against Leoma. So you'll have to consider that. Again, it comes down to credibility. Who, again, you guys get to determine what you think is the truth is. And again, in the end, if you're not exactly sure what the truth, what really happened, if there is any question about whether she did commit this assault, whether it was in defense of others, again, that burden is on the prosecutor to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have enough questions to raise that reasonable doubt, it would be an acquittal of the charge. So that's what we'd be asking today, is that you find that they haven't met their burden, and that she was in reasonable belief of the defense of her daughter, and that she's not guilty of the crime. Thank you.
Okay, if you want to turn your attention
Your
to,
Your Honor, do I get?
you have rebuttal.
Yes.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt only applies to the two elements that I have. You might still have some unanswered questions, and that's okay. None of us were there that day. People that were there were in this room, and they told you what happened. Beyond a reasonable doubt is not what's possible, it's what's reasonable. So those unanswered questions, they may have been possible, but beyond a reasonable doubt isn't what's possible. Person is only justified in using the degree of force that seems necessary to protect themselves from danger. The right to defend oneself only lasts as long as it seems necessary for the purpose of protection. You're going to have to go back and you're going to have to decide, was it necessary? Testimony that you received tells you that it wasn't necessary, that she didn't have to tackle, and take her to the ground. Testimony from her daughter, Libby. She had to tell her to get up. She had to tell her to stop. That's longer than necessary. It was longer than necessary. There wasn't even an immediate threat. And the person she was supposedly protecting, Libby, was telling her to stop and was telling her it was enough. Heather came is claiming she came to the defense of Libby. What you heard Heather say herself, Libby was free. There's nothing else that needs to be done. Libby was free. They could get in their cars and they could leave. But she didn't. She continued to tackle Libby, or to tackle Leoma. I would ask that you come back. Thank you.
Okay, final instructions here on the screen. Members of the jury, the evidence and arguments in this case are finished, and I will now instruct you on the law as it applies in this case. Remember that you have taken an oath to return a true and just verdict based only on the evidence and my instruction on the law. You must not let sympathy or prejudice influence your decision. As jurors, you must decide what the facts of this case are. This is your job and no one else's. You must think about all the evidence and then decide what each piece of evidence means and how important you think it is. This includes whether you believe what each of the witnesses said. What you decide about any fact in this case is final. It is my duty to instruct you on the law. You must take the law as I give it to you. If a lawyer says something different about the law, follow what I say. At various times, I have already given you some instructions about the law. You must take all my instructions together as the law you are to follow. You should not pay attention to some instructions and ignore others. To sum up, it is your job to decide what the facts of the case are, to apply the law as I give it to you, and in that way, decide the case. A person accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. This means that you must start with the presumption that the defendant is innocent. This presumption continues throughout the trial and entitles the defendant to a verdict of not guilty unless you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty. Every crime is made up of parts called elements. The prosecutor must prove each element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant is not required to prove her innocence or to do anything. If you find that the prosecutor has not proved every element beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. A reasonable doubt is a fair, honest doubt growing out of the evidence or lack of evidence. It is not merely an imaginary or possible doubt, but a doubt based on reason and common sense. A reasonable doubt is just that, a doubt that is reasonable after a careful and considered examination of the facts and circumstances of this case. Many things are not evidence, and you must be careful not to consider them as such. The fact that the defendant is charged with a crime and is on trial is not evidence. The lawyer's statements and arguments are not evidence. They are only meant to help you understand the evidence in each side's legal theories. You should only accept things the lawyers say that are supported by the evidence or by your own common sense and general knowledge. The lawyer's questions to the witnesses and my questions to the witnesses are not evidence. You should consider these questions only as they give meaning to the witnesses' answers. My comments, rulings, questions, and instructions are also not evidence. It is my duty to see that the trial is conducted according to the law and to tell you the law that applies in the case. However, when I make a comment or give an instruction, I am not trying to influence your vote or express a personal opinion about the case. If you decide that I have an opinion about how you decide the case, you must pay no attention to that opinion. You are the only judges of the facts in this case, and you should decide this case from the evidence. At times during the trial, I have excluded evidence that was offered or stricken testimony that was heard. Do not consider those things in deciding the case. Make your decision only on the evidence that I let in and nothing else. Your decision should be based on all the evidence, regardless of which party produced it. You should use your own common sense and general knowledge in weighing and judging the evidence. But you should not use any personal knowledge you may have about a place, person, or event. To repeat once more, you must decide this case based only on the evidence admitted during the trial. As I said before, it is your job to decide what the facts of this case are. You must decide which witnesses you believe and how important you think their testimony is. You do not have to accept or reject everything a witness said. You are free to believe all, none, or part of any person's testimony. In deciding which testimony you believe, you should rely on your own common sense and everyday experience. However, in deciding whether you believe a witness's testimony, you must set aside any bias or prejudice you may have based on race, gender, or national origin of the witness. There is no fixed set of rules for judging whether you believe a witness, but it may help you to think about these questions. Was the witness able to see or hear clearly? How long was the witness watching or listening? Was anything else going on that might distract the witness? Does the witness seem to have a good memory? How did the witness look and act while testifying? Did the witness seem to be making an honest effort to tell the truth, or did the witness seem to evade the questions or argue with the lawyers? Does the witness's age or maturity affect how you judge his or her testimony? Does the witness have any bias, prejudice, or personal interest in how the case is decided? Have there been any promises, threats, suggestions, or other influences that affected how the witness testified? In general, does the witness have any special reason to tell the truth or any special reason to lie? All in all, how reasonable does the witness's testimony seem when you think about the other evidence in the case? Sometimes the testimony of different witnesses will not agree. You must decide which testimony you accept. You should think about whether the disagreement involves something important or not, and whether you think someone is lying or is simply mistaken. People see and hear things differently, and witnesses may testify honestly, but simply be wrong about what they thought they saw or remembered. It is also a good idea to think about which testimony agrees best with the other evidence in the case. However, you may conclude that a witness deliberately lied about something that is important to how you decide the case. If so, you may choose not to accept anything that witness said. On the other hand, if you think the witness lied about some things but told the truth about others, you may simply accept the part you think is true and ignore the rest. The prosecutor must also prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the crime occurred on or about September 18, 2019, within the city of Lansing, Ingham County. When you go to the jury room, you may take a written copy of the jury instructions with you along with your notes. You should first choose a foreperson. The foreperson should see to it that your discussions are carried out in a businesslike way and that everyone has a fair chance to be heard. During your deliberations, please turn off your cell phones or other communication equipment until we recess. A verdict in a criminal case must be unanimous. In order to return a verdict, it is necessary that each of you agrees on that verdict. In the jury room, you will discuss the case among yourselves, but ultimately each of you will have to make up your own mind. Any verdict must represent the individual considered judgment of each juror. As you discuss the case, you should think about all my instructions together as the law you are to follow. However, although you should try to reach agreement, should say an agreement, none of you should give up your honest opinion about the case just because other jurors disagree with you or just for the sake of reaching a verdict. In the end, your vote must be your own and you must vote honestly and in good conscience. Possible penalty should not influence your decision. It is the duty of the judge to fix the penalty within the limits provided by the law. If you want to communicate with me while you are in the jury room, please have your foreperson write a note and give it to my court officer. If it is not proper for you to talk directly with the judge, lawyers, court officers, or other people involved in the case. As you discuss the case, you must not let anyone, even me, know how your voting stands. Therefore, until you return with a unanimous verdict, do not reveal this to anyone outside the jury room. When you go to the jury room to deliberate, you may take your notes and full instructions. If you want to look at any of or all the reference documents or exhibits that have been admitted, just ask for them. I think there was only one exhibit. Correct?
Correct, Your
Okay.
Honor.
When you go to the jury room, you will be given a written copy of the instructions you have just heard. As you discuss this case, you should think about all my instructions together as the law you are to follow. You may return a verdict of guilty of the alleged crime or not guilty. I have prepared a verdict form listing the possible verdicts. Facts can be proven by direct evidence from a witness or an exhibit. Direct evidence is evidence about what we actually see or hear. For example, if you look outside, today's a good day for this example, and see rain falling, that is a direct evidence that it is raining. Facts can also be proved by indirect or circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence is evidence that normally or reasonably leads to other facts. So taking the same example, if you see a person coming from outside wearing a raincoat covered with small drops of water, that would be circumstantial evidence that it is raining. You may consider circumstantial evidence by itself or a combination of circumstantial evidence and direct evidence can be used to prove the elements of the crime. In other words, you should consider all evidence that you believe. You may consider whether the defendant had a reason to commit the alleged crime, but a reason by itself is not enough to find a person guilty of a crime. The prosecutor does not have to prove that the defendant had a reason to commit the alleged crime. He only has to show that the defendant actually committed the crime and that she meant to do so. The defendant's intent may be proved by what she said, what she did, how she did it, or by any other facts and circumstances and evidence. You should not decide the case based on which side presented more witnesses. Instead, you should think about each witness and each piece of evidence and whether you believe them. Then you must decide whether the testimony and evidence you believe proves beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. The defendant is charged with the crime of assault and battery. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant committed a battery upon Leoma Scott. A battery is a forceful, violent, or offensive touching of the person or something closely connected with the person of another. The touching must have been intended by the defendant that is not accidental, and it must have been against Leoma Scott's will. It does not matter whether the touching caused an injury. Second, the defendant intended either to commit a battery upon Leoma Scott or to make Leoma Scott reasonably fear an immediate battery. Use of non-deadly force in self-defense or defense of others. The defendant claims that she acted in lawful defense of Elizabeth Rowley. A person has the right to use force to defend another person under certain circumstances. If a person acts in lawful defense of others, her actions are justified, and she is not guilty of assault and battery. You should consider all the evidence and use the following rules to decide whether the defendant acted in lawful defense of Elizabeth Rowley. Remember to judge the defendant's conduct according to how the circumstances appeared to her at the time she acted. First, when she acted, the defendant must have honestly and reasonably believed that she had to use force to protect Elizabeth Rowley from the imminent unlawful use of force by another. If her belief was honest and reasonable, she could act at once to defend Elizabeth Rowley, even if it turns out later that she was wrong about how much danger Elizabeth Rowley was in. Second, a person is only justified in using the degree of force that seems necessary at the time to protect the other person from danger. The defendant must have used this kind of force that was appropriate to the attack made in the circumstances as she saw them. When you decide whether the force used was what seemed necessary, you should consider whether the defendant knew about any other ways of protecting Elizabeth Rowley, but you may also consider how the excitement of the moment affected the choice the defendant made. Third, the right to defend another person only lasts as long as it seems necessary for the purpose of protection. Fourth, the person claiming self-defense must not have acted wrongfully and brought on the assault. However, if the defendant only used words, that does not prevent her from claiming self-defense if she was attacked. The defendant does not have to prove that she acted in self-defense. Instead, the prosecutor must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did not act in self-defense. To prove this charge, it is not necessary that there be evidence other than the testimony of Leoma Scott if that testimony proves guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. And that concludes the instructions. We have to now pick a lucky person who will not have to decide this case. And Mr. Bigelow has put a number in this cup representing each of you. And I'm gonna have Ms. Nash pick a number, please. What is it? 6. You're number 6.
Okay.
We are so sorry that you will not be able to stick around and decide the case, but we thank you for joining us today and being willing to fulfill your civic duty. Thank you. I see some disappointment. No?
Yeah.
Okay, the rest of you will be released now. Now is the time for you to decide the case and to deliberate. And we'll get you a copy of the instructions, which Mr. Bigelow will get for you. I'm going to swear him in when he comes back. And then you'll be able to be released to the jury room. Do you solemnly swear that you will, to the utmost of your ability, keep the persons sworn as jurors on this trial from separating from each other, that you will not suffer any communication to be made of them or any orally or otherwise, and that you will not communicate with them until they discharge a verdict and they have agreed upon it, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. You may be excused to deliberate, and we are in recess until the verdict.